Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
and I'm Tom.
We are Team Binge, and welcome back. We're here talking about The Rings of Power, Episode 3, which is called Adar. These episodes have names. I learned that in the last pod, so I'm making a note of writing the title in the outline. We appreciate you joining us. Hopefully you're enjoying this show as much as we are, and you're also enjoying all the people on the internet talking about it in various ways. My recommendation would be block out the noise and just listen to us. Just listen to the smooth sounds of Julian and Tom telling you about a show you've already watched and not giving you any more new information other than they're just as confused as you are. Tom, kick us off.
All right, this is a fun one. I enjoyed it. It had a lot of action. It had a lot of romance. We got some new characters.
So much romance.
We get a little bit more lore. We actually go to the Hall of Lore, which is one of my favorite halls.
The most romantic of places.
And we got a sweet, sweet beach horse riding sequence, which we will get to. But I am excited to talk about that.
Oh man, the romance in that scene alone between Galadriel and I'm assuming that's Shadowfax. I don't know. Every white horse I see in a Lord of the Rings thing, I'm going to assume is Shadowfax, or maybe Shadowfax's older brother, Badowfax.
I was going to think of what happened, or what did we send before fax machines? Shadow mail.
Nice. Yep. Shadow Male. Yep. Or Shadowfax is a nickname, and he's Shadow Facsimile. Maybe that's
Okay.
what it is.
Shortened.
Anyways, let's start at the top of this episode, which begins where the horror film of the second episode ended, where Arendelle was pulled in with steady hands through that weird hanging stuff. I don't know. Turns out he's captured by orcs, and they bring up a name, which is also the name of the episode, which the orcs are all talking about. This guy named Adar.
Yes.
And the plot thickens. What confused me a little bit is the name of the world in Lord of the Rings is a very similar name to Adar. It's like Arda. And
Okay.
so every time they said this, I got confused. But once again, Tom and I, we're not here to do deep dives into the lore. But I think it's important that our audience knows that I'm confused most of the time, if not all the time. Not only during this show, but through the majority of my existence. What did you think of the orcs, Tom?
I love the orcs. I continue to be very impressed by their design, and I do appreciate the idea that each orc kind of has their own general, I don't know, just gross faces, teeth, design. Like some of them are big and bulky. Like it's pretty wide ranging. I still love that bone armor. They kind of wear the snake skin stuff, which the interesting twist they kind of added here is the idea that they're afraid of sunlight, or the sunlight burns them. So I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if that was something that was made out in the original trilogy. I do feel like there's mention of the Uruk-hai being like, hey, they can run all day and all night and have some resistances. But yeah, I don't remember orcs being like vampires. But I do want to just backtrack to what you said. You mentioned you love the orcs. So you were going on record pro-orc. You are pro-orc. Is that correct?
I am pro orc design. I think the design of the probably $13 million they used on just these orcs in these scenes, fantastic. Worth every penny.
13 million chump change, as they call it on this show. Yeah, so I did think they looked cool. I agree with you. Each orc was like, hey, when you get to your orc bar mitzvah, you get to choose what bone mask you're going to wear, and no one chooses the same one. So I feel bad for the orc that chose the cute animal. He's running
There's
around.
one in the background. He's wearing a little bunny skull. It's adorable.
Right. Although then that just looks like Donnie Darko, and that's terrifying. We find out that Arondir is captured with both elves and humans, and they are put to manual labor. It looked like there weren't a lot of OSHA standards going on there, and it didn't seem like they had unionized yet because...
No. Not yet. They're digging trenches for these orcs to be able to get around. But the assumption is these are just all the folks from all the villages that they've been ransacking, correct?
That's my assumption, and
Okay.
I only can assume, Tom, because they did not tell us anything. We then cut from there. Galadriel and Halbrand are on a ship. We find out that ship is captained by Elendil, who is the father of Isildur. And those names should all sound familiar because they eventually lead to the formation of Gondor and some other stuff, but we don't need to get into it. Did you recognize the name Elendil? Did you know who this guy was as soon as he walked on the great oak ship of the cruiser Numenorian? I don't know what it's called.
I didn't know this name, and Isildur definitely stands out because of him getting his name screamed and him being the one that takes the ring and does not throw it into the Mount Doom. So he has more name recognition than I feel his father does. So I didn't recognize him immediately, but I do like this actor that plays
Fantastic.
Elendil. His voice is just super deep and
Yep.
it's Shakespearean almost. I love every line he says.
Yep, I loved him in Game of Thrones. I loved him when he was in that play in Oxford. I loved him in all those BBC specials. I couldn't tell you if this guy was in any of those things, but if he wasn't, it's a crying shame because he does a darn good job. I enjoyed him when he was Indiana Jones's father. We find out that these guys on this boat and where Galadriel and Halbrand are headed is to the island nation of Numenor, which is the westernmost island before you get to the Undying Lands of where the elves go. And just some quick nerd stuff. Numenor is once again, the nation of people that eventually leads to Gondor. They kind of move in and populate more of Middle-earth. They also rebel against the Valar because they're offended they can't take their ships over the Undying Land because they feel like the gods are kind of besmirching them the ability to live eternal lives. So that conflict eventually shows up. I don't know if it'll show up in this show, but that's something that happens.
Because, they kind of make mention of it where Galadriel kind of does the exposition to Halbrand and kind of tells him, this is, they're not the same kind of humans that you are because you were the ones that kind of rose up and had a blood oath with Morgoth versus these humans who are kind of special, and they're the ones that sided with the elves, and the elves gave them this island. So there's already kind of that animosity that kind of gets set up here.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. This whole town looks lovely. Looks like a place that Travel Zoo every once in a while will send me an email and be like, hey, 5 nights for this much. 2-person villa with a rooftop pool. One day I'm going to stay in a place with a rooftop pool, Tom.
Is that your goal? Bucket list item?
Yes. Yes, sir, it is. We meet the queen. The queen's name is Muriel. She seems lovely. Everyone bows to her. There's a tradition where everyone bows in Numenor. We all know it. You had to be a fool not to know it.
I love that quick little line from Halbrand. It's Neil, no one kneels in Numenor.
Sorry. Yeah. There are some funny moments in this show. It has such weight and gravity, but it's certainly very funny. The introductions are great. Galadriel is I'm the commander of the northernmost forces. I'm the winner of all the battles, and I stab snow trolls in the face with this dagger that you took from me. And Halbrand's Halbrand. From the south side, baby. Something like that. I don't know. The introductions were great. They ask for passage to Middle-earth, which the Numenorians don't seem all that keen on. There's a lot of rabble-rousing in the background, which there's something about a crowd scene, and I don't know is it a Simpsons episode or something where they just have the mob be rabble, 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 rabble. They just say it. And there's certain shows that just do it so poorly that you're like, that's not really how a crowd sounds or reacts. But
Yeah.
this one, I don't know. This one, there was rabble, 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 rabble.
It was kind of comedic, like all this back and forth with, I don't know, the Queen's actions, Galadriel's reactions. They all just seem so silly and out of place. I guess the idea is just continue to push the narrative that elves hate humans, humans hate elves, and they're both gonna just yell at each other and not like. It seemed like a pretty reasonable ask, right? Hey, can I just take a little skiff? I'll get out of your hair. We'll be out of the way. Done.
Right, like. So the other option is they kill them or they stay on the island forever. Like, I don't see a whole lot of other options. Why not send them back if you don't like? I didn't appreciate, and I don't feel like the show really explained why. And maybe it's just that the Númenóreans never travel to Middle Earth, but that seems strange because if they can't travel to the Undying Lands and they can't travel to Middle Earth, what are they doing with all these boats? It's just like a counterclockwise pleasure cruise around the island. I don't know what's going on. That's also on Travel Zoo. You can do a 3-night sunset coast ride around Numenor.
See the faces of Numenor.
We are not sponsored by Travel Zoo. Just we could be though. Halbrand is great here. He's the peacemaker, and I like to think that as the third son in a group of siblings, I am often playing this role in terms of, and Halbrand immediately let's just cut to the chase. Galadriel sometimes is not great with people. She's like very confrontational, like not one for like a little bit of politicking. I think that's why her and Elrond are probably a good pair. But Halbrand's like, listen, hey, sounds like maybe this isn't the greatest option. Why don't you give us 3 days? We'll let you think about it. By the way, you look great. Love the dress. Like, I don't know. It was... Anyways, I love a peacemaker in the room. They always shows always make them seem like so smooth. But you're like, isn't he the just like reasonable one in the room? Isn't that how we should all be in a situation like this? But
well, you feel like Galadriel is like a elf that lives a very, very long life. I get that she's like, she doesn't like humans. We've established that, I think, multiple times already. Like, she feel like she'd be more diplomatic. Else they would just literally lock you in a cell and you could just live there and rot for seemingly eternity, however long elves live.
Tact is a leadership trait. Look it up. Look it up. Yeah, anyways, great scene. We find out it's 3 days in Numenor, which is either 3 days in Numenor is either like a house music song that some DJ wrote, or it should be a spin-off movie, 3 days in Numenor, and we just follow these two around as they fall in love, and then one becomes just like the talented Mr. Ripley and murders the other. Spoilers, sorry. Halbrand, this is where we find Halbrand's really good with his hands. He's a bit of a sneaky sneak.
I like how they did this too, because the second he gives him a hug, I'm like, oh, okay, he's stealing his dagger. Like, immediately knew what was going on. I think later on when he steals like the blacksmith's little medallion guy, they show it on screen, which I appreciate. It's not just like a bump, like you can actually see the actor take it from him, which I think is kind of cool.
Yep. All I have to say is that Halbrand has stolen my heart. Once again, I don't understand why they can't go back. Did I miss something? Did you catch something that I missed, maybe? This island's not a secret. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of out there. I do appreciate they give us like the map view when they go back to like the Southlands to see exactly where Numenor was, because I don't know if I necessarily knew that it was kind of across the Sundering Sea or whatever. But I mean, my only initial inclination is spite. The queen is just spiteful and just, okay, an elf is here, I'm going to do it out of spite. Or just for character development, because Numenor is a dope place and they want to keep the characters there for a while.
Sure.
And have some dialogue back and forth between them.
Sure. So one is character driven, one is story driven. I got to be honest, you could have just stopped at spite. I do a lot of things in my life out of spite. It's a great motivator. If my wife still listens to us right now, she'll be understanding this because
shaking her head.
I am driven by spite. We have a conversation with Captain Ellendale. We find out that he is, I guess it's not with him, it's about him, but we find out he's of a noble line. He's now a sea guardsman. He's got a son. And then we cut to the Sea Guardian Academy and Isildur.
Yes.
And this takes us to boat school. Tom, you can have the floor. Talk to us about, as you're a sailor, a good man. Tell us about sailing school.
Yeah, these students he was with did not do a great job of tacking the windboard round or whatever he was told to do in
the
Winter
starboard.
Crushers.
Sure, yep.
I do like the introduction of Isildur because this is definitely a character that the audience is likely familiar with if they've seen the movies in the franchise before, the young version of Isildur. I think it's kind of cool the way they do him, like hearing his name whispered, like he's kind of like daydreaming and looking off on, I'm assuming the island, looking to Numenor, and he kind of hears his name echoed, and then he gets like a voice screaming in the background, which is kind of echoey of somebody screaming like Isildur, which took me right back to the movies. I wonder if it's kind of like a call forward or a call back to the movies of him kind of like, Isildur, cast the thing into the fire, and him kind of saying no. Otherwise, I don't know why he's like hearing whispers quite yet because he doesn't have any rings with him. But I thought it was kind of a cool nod, if it was, to the movies.
Sure. That, or maybe he has some sort of growth pushing on that part of his brain that is causing him to hear his voice in causing him to hear his name in Sauron's voice. And that explains maybe some of the decisions he makes later in life.
Yeah, I think it's Tumenor.
A Tumenor. Oh, Tom. Tom. Oh, Tom. Oh, incredible work. Incredible work. I'm writing it down. That was a great moment. Tumenor. Just for our audience, if you aren't following, because we mentioned he's in the trilogy, but just so you understand, Isildur is the one that cuts the ring from Sauron's hand, takes over the ring, and then is in Mount Doom with, I'm blank, who?
Is Elrond.
Elrond, grown up Elrond, Mr. Smith Elrond, and he won't throw it into Mount Doom. He takes it, and then he is killed, and that's when the ring goes into the river, which Smeagol then finds. There you go. That's Isildur. That's as much lore as we're doing on the show for you. There's some sea drama where the kid is holding a rope and he gets slung up into the air. And listen, I'm enjoying the show, Tom. I would never be critical of the Rings of Power. You know me. I'm just not that type of guy. I recently rewatched the first episode of Ted Lasso, and I've decided I lost it for a while, but I'm back to being the positive guy that Lasso created that caused us to start this podcast. Sometimes shows just like put in an action scene because I think someone came in and they were like, hey, it's a lot of talking like through all this. And so we need this character no one cares about to be caught up in a rope so that we can show that like Isildur is competent. But like, I don't know. This was one of those things I was like, all right, cool. Like the sea's dangerous. The sea also has several mottos that I'm going to give you the floor on. Can you give us the sea mottos? Please.
you have the ones from like the teacher or professor. I don't know what do you call a teacher of a sea guardian academy?
Probably the sailmaster. I don't know.
I like that. Okay. So the sailmaster gives two great quotes. He's kind of like, there's no harsher master than the sea. And they all kind of pop up on land. And then they do the kind of call and response thing where he's like, the sea is always right. And everybody repeats after him. I would have liked to see the alternate lines. These are some that I came up with.
Sure.
They could have shopped to these. I think they should have said, instead of the sea is always right, life is simple, just add water. I don't know.
Sure.
Wild and free, just like the sea.
It
Let the
rhymes.
sea,
I like
let
that
the
one.
sea set you free.
Okay, yes, still with the
And
rhyming.
then
Yep.
my personal favorite, high tides, good vibes.
That's good vibes. Just out there drinking a Bacardi and rum. Wait, no, Bacardi is a rum. That doesn't make sense. I like them all, Tom. You did a great job. Here's the deal. It seems to be a group of like kind of teenagers, right? Or young men. If an instructor was like, the sea is always right, there's one donkey in the back of that group that's like, the sea is always wrong, and like they're snickering. There's just no way. And honestly, that motto confuses me a bit. What does that mean? The sea is always right.
I mean, sometimes you got to go left.
Exactly. The sea is. I guess the sea is a Republican, apparently. We're 9 days to graduation of these sea guardians, so they become seamen after that.
Correct.
And then while and this is Isildur talking with his goofy buddies, guaranteed one of them is like, the sea is always wrong. And then we meet his sister, and her name has those 2 dots over it, so I don't really know how to pronounce it.
Yarian?
Sure, that sounds right. You
I'm going
can, you can
Technically-
be the pronunciation guy.
I think technically Numenor has it as well, so it's supposed to be like Numenor. Or I don't know. Galadriel says it a lot cooler than I could.
Galadriel says everything cooler than everyone could in any movie she's in or show. So we meet the sister. I don't think we really discover anything in this meeting.
Nope.
We then cut to the throne room. We see a white tree of Numenor, which is also a descendant of those 2 main trees. This one happens to be called Nimloth, which... Sorry, Tom. I went into some more lore. I'm just going to give you the tree's name, though. That's all.
Does it have like a brother tree, Nimrod?
No, they set that one on fire. The queen is talking with Elendil, and she's like, hey, doesn't your name mean something? And he's like, yeah, it means this. And she's like, doesn't it mean something else? And he's like, yeah, I mean, in the old tongue, it means elf friend. And it was kind of like, he didn't...
Rubble.
Yeah, it's like, hey, he didn't name himself, though. Just because his name is Elfriend doesn't, he didn't choose that. But...
Well, I do feel like a lot of, this time stuff, it's always like if your family, your blood, you're always kind of get thrown into, your blood. Your father called you this, so then you must be this as well.
Sure. And he was like, well, your name's Muriel, so you like mirrors. And they got into an argument, which led nowhere, because arguments are bad. They start questioning him about why he brings the elf to the land, and the big T word is thrown out there. Treason.
The treason, yes. I don't like this. I get the queen doesn't like elves, but there's just loads and loads of bigotry of just... I don't like them because they're different seemingly. There's no reason really given to us as to why. And I'm sure they're doing that for a purpose. Because I think we even get later on where the queen goes up to, I guess, the king's bedside. I guess we're to assume that the king, because she goes to see her father, right? And almost prophesizes, hey, the elf is here, what we got to do. So maybe she knows more than she's kind of putting on, but I'm not a huge fan of this sequence. And she doesn't come off very good. I do have another question, though. So... when the queen asks him to perform a service, and then the other guy kind of comes in and just hands him a sword, what did you think the service was?
Well, I thought she was asking him to clean that sword and then return it back to them in at least 24 hours, because I think she said light on the starch, which everyone knows you should not heavy starch a sword. Okay. My other assumption was that she was like, hey, I need you to go stab the elf warrior leader, commander of the northern armies, to which Elendil should have been like, no thank you, she will murder me.
Yeah, it was just weird. It screamed to me that she wanted him to use the sword to murder Galadriel, yet the very next sequence we get is him just saying, oh, by the way, queen asked me to just watch over you. So you need the ceremonial sword to watch over him?
Yes, I think this is a show thing. The show was trying to throw you off and be like, oh, the queen wants her dead. And so they're giving him the classic assassin's tool, a giant sword that everyone can see that's inlaid. It's got the queen's name on it on a piece of masking tape and Sharpie, so no one will know who sent him. I don't know. Yeah, once again, I think you can get cynical when you watch too many shows, which maybe I need to do something else with my life. But no, to your point, it was the show was implying, hey, I need you to go kill her. But in the end, it was like, oh, surprise! She just wants them to like watch over her. So
Yeah. Okay.
no, you're not. You're closer to my. You're closer than my laundering of the sword thoughts.
Okay.
We cut to the Southlands. Arendir. He's working hard. They're doing some manual labor. We find out that, once again, as you mentioned before, the orcs are afraid of sunlight, so they can only travel in trenches that are covered with umbrellas?
Yeah, they're vampire umbrellas, apparently.
Yep. Arendir is talking to one of the other elves, and
I think this is where we get, like, and they did this in, like, the, like, previously on the very beginning. They give us a shot. I think it's Revian is his name, who was kind of like the commander of the Night Tower or whatever when they were kind of posted. So it kind of, like, brings him back. And I thought the guy was, like, a relatively bigger actor. I don't know what I'd seen him from, but I think that's why he kind of brought back here.
Tom,
Yeah.
I'm going to let you know something. Mm-hmm. When you watched this, did you know who the two other elves were?
Correct. Because
You did.
I watched the previously on. The previously on shows both of these. The one that was killed is one of the other ones. I think it might have been the one he was like patrolling with in the very first episodes.
Tom, if you skip the previously on, you have no idea who these two people are. I can confirm this because I watched this episode twice, had no idea who those two were. I literally have it in the notes. That character dies, why do I care? And it wasn't until today I saw something on, I think, our Twitter feed that someone had posted about, hey, shout out to these two guys. And it had like side-by-side pictures. And I was like, I did not know. I went in, I walked in, I went to my wife and I was like, hey, you know those two guys that die? The one that gets arrowed and the one that gets his neck a little bit cut? Did you know they were his patrolling partner and then the watch officer? And she was like, nope, no idea. So I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's a large population of the world right now that does not know that was the same. Because I don't think if you don't watch the previous Lawn, you know who that is.
And I think that's fair. I think the way they, like all the elves, especially all those elves, I think were in that kind of cool muted gray armor with like, I don't know, like trees kind of carved into them. Like they do all like have a similar vibe. And because there's so many characters, it is difficult to discern some of them from them. So I could get that, but that's why a show like this, it's like Game of Thrones too, that had just so many characters. I'm always going to watch those previously ons. The other thing too, as I watch those is because they'll give you like, if they did like a hint in, I mean, this obviously we're only in the third episode, but say it's like season 4 of a series, they'll give you like a flashback from like a season 2 episode 1 thing that is going to have a callback to the current episode you're watching. So I always make a point to watch that because they're reminding me about things that are going to show up in this episode.
Tom? Mm-hmm. We are 3 episodes in, and 2 of those episodes dropped in the same week. I do not feel like I should have to watch it previously on
Apparently
to not understand.
You do.
Oh, I was blown away by this because I totally didn't understand. I was like, why are there 2 random elves here? They don't like introduce themselves. I don't even feel like they come across as like they know each other. It was so strange to me. I was like, okay, there's just 2 elves here. I had no idea who these guys were. No idea. I'll go out on a limb and say I probably didn't even know they were elves until the second viewing, which is terrible.
And we're doing a podcast on this where we're having to watch this multiple times, take notes. Man.
Listen, I need some support here. For those of you that are just realizing with me that the 2, okay, and we're talking about the elf that is with Arendir that takes the drink of water and then the orc cuts his throat, and then the older one who eventually
Revian,
runs out of the what?
His name is Revian, I think.
His name doesn't matter because he's dead. He runs out of the trench and gets shot by arrows very dramatically. Spoilers. If you did not know those were the same people that one Arendir patrols with and he tells him he smells, it's that guy. And that is also his watch officer that's like, it's not about what humans did all that long ago. It's about who they still are. That's the guy that gets arrowed. Please email me in support at teambingepodcast@gmail.com or start a Twitter account and then send me your support. I really think I am not alone in realizing this, because 2 people in my household, 2 of 2 in the household that watches this, did not understand who those people were.
Well, 1 of 1 in this household did.
Oh, yeah, you're watching alone over there. You've been abandoned. All right.
Okay, so anyways, getting back to the show here, they talk about Adar, or Adar, whatever, being Sauron, and that he's kind of going, or he's looking for something, right? So I got a couple questions. First one, what is he looking for? Is the assumption is he's looking for that hilt of that sword that the kid found?
Oh, I'm sure, because Arondir's first response is, like a weapon? And I'm like, okay, so the show's telling you he's looking for a weapon. Thanks, Arondir.
Okay. And then he makes mention of, like, why is he using the Elvish word, Adar, as opposed to, like, Sauron? And it started to make me question, like, is this really Sauron here? Because Revian even says, like, a little line. He's like, oh, he goes by many names. Perhaps this is one of them. Just that idea of perhaps and kind of throwing a little bit of question on this made me question this. Do you have any thoughts, or do you think who we saw at the very end in Fuzzy Cam is Sauron?
I assume it is. I don't think this show is... I don't think they've created a different big bad for this show, because I think the world needs Sauron. I
don't think they did either. I just feel like they might be, like, misdirecting a little bit.
Okay.
Like, this maybe isn't the actual Sauron, and he's going by that. Because to your point, like, why bring in this interesting, unique name that already has other world-building elements if the whole continent or world or globe is called Arda? I don't know.
Well, I will tell you that Adar is a name that they created for this show.
Okay.
That's not in other lore. So, I don't know, but I do think it's going to be Sauron.
Okay.
Because, as I just said, the world needs Sauron. That's what my license plate says. That's what most of the t-shirts say. When I go door to door and I knock on people's door, I tell them the world needs Sauron. And then I hand them the Silmarillion.
Pamphlet.
A pamphlet that summarizes the Silmarillion. It's 400 pages long. The Silmarillion itself is only 300 pages, but in order to explain it, you need a pamphlet that's 400 pages long. I love all this. I love everything about Lord of the Rings, so don't at me if you're disappointed in my takes. They need to... Okay, this is where they draw up a plan, and they're like, hey, we need to escape, then we need to bring back an army, and the only thing stopping this plan is a tree that's in the way. And they really defend this tree. This tree means a lot to them. And this leads to a little bit of disagreement with their orc guards. One orc guard who seems super cool is like, hey, listen, I gotcha. Trees are cool. I like trees. I grew up in one. Here, have some water. You got a lot of gumption. Here's some water. And then he kills the one. And that character has a name. I don't know what it was, and I didn't know that he knew Arondir until after the episode. So I did not care when this character died. I'm sorry. I'll just say it out loud.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Steve. So when Steve is drinking his water...
Steve the elf.
Steve makes the classic error of not, like, using 2 hands to bring the water up to. He uses one, which exposes his neck. And then he gets seemingly just a little paper cut kind of on the side. It didn't seem to hit his jugular. I don't know where the jugular is. I've seen them some movies. It's usually in the center. Well, I don't know.
This is an elf, Tom. They've got totally different anatomies.
I got jugulars everywhere.
Right. Just not in the neck.
But yeah, he kind of dies rather quickly and I guess not unceremoniously. Like Arondir is like is kind of like huddled over him or whatever. But I mean, he dies very, very quickly with not a whole lot of blood. But I'm sure the show is just trying to be a little bit less brutal.
Yeah, they're trying to get the not Game of Thrones audience, so there's a lot less incest, nudity, and violence, which I can appreciate because I don't mind turning this show on when my kids are in the room. And my kids are like, oh, hey, that's those 2 elves from earlier in that other episode that knew Arondir. And I'm like, go watch Roblox or something. I don't know if kids watch Roblox. But Arondir volunteers to cut the tree, And I would just like to point out that the roots of the tree are the issue. So cutting down the tree and leaving the giant trunk with all the roots, I don't know that this is going to solve anything. And so this is where I kind of thought, we're just going to leave a stump.
Well, and he even makes a note that Arevian or whatever is like, listen, this is not smart for us to cut down this tree. We can just kind of dig around it and we'd be great. But clearly they wanted to create a stump so they can have Stump Fest.
Stump Fest.
Everybody loves a Stump Fest. For our Bluey heads that watch Bluey, Stump Fest is one of the greatest episodes ever.
Stump Fest. An adult's play date. Stump Fest. Anyways, we have a very dramatic moment where Arendelle has a two-bladed axe and he starts cutting that tree. And I'm no lumberjack, but I've got some issue with his technique. We cut from there to Numenor. Galadriel's walking around. Oh, she jumps from a second story. She's checking out boats, how she's going to get off the island. Which I don't really think she's given this island much of a chance. You know, she hasn't even seen the sights. She hasn't rode down the canals. She hasn't seen the Leaning Tower of Numenor. She runs into Elendil. He's like, hey, don't escape. Galadriel is super not friendly to him. He gives some speech about, I've got 2 kids. They both have crazy eyes. You've got crazy eyes, so I've got to watch over you. The queen told me I had to. She's like, everyone's terrible. He's like, oh, I speak your language. And we have a king that was deposed because he likes elves. Huh? And we've also got a Hall of Lore, which you get to by riding. And she's like, riding what? And he's like, you ride on an animal. And she's like, what animal? And he's like, it's an animal that you put a saddle on. And she's like, a saddle on what? And he's like, a horse. And she's like, I love horses. And then what do we cut to, Tom?
We cut to this beautiful Cologne commercial of running through the I guess the beach, the cloven hooves kind of going super slow-mo. I was for it. It was beautiful. They got the cool CGI kind of in the background of the castle that they're kind of running to. I did not need the super close-up of her seemingly as a kid, has never ridden a horse or apparently been a millennia since she's ridden a horse with this big old smile on her face. It was just weird and didn't seem to be needed.
Was that a smile or was that a grimace? It was an aggressive smile, and then it fades to, and it's eternity from Marc Jacobs, or I don't know who does Cologne. No, give me another shot. Run that back. It's eternity. Miley Cyrus. I don't know who. I don't know. Well, it'd be a perfume, so it'd be Eternitia. Dolly Parton. I don't know. I don't know who makes colognes. I just know that there's something about that blue color of her dress and the way it slow motion twirls. I don't know. I guess I'd buy it. Sorry.
After all that, you're buying this cologne or perfume?
Perfume, sure.
Smells like horses.
Smells like horses. I hope it's made from horses. Halbrand is trying to get a job. He's in the middle of a job interview. He's like, hey, man, I can work late hours. I don't need benefits. I want to be a blacksmith. Just give me a chance. It's like one of those Indeed commercials where you feel bad for the person until they get a job. The blacksmith's like, listen, you can't be a blacksmith unless you have this cool medallion, which is not going to foreshadow something that's going to happen in the next part of the show. Which finds us with Halbrand. He quit on that interview real quick. He's like, fine, I'm going to go get something to eat. And he's at, I guess, the local soup kitchen because he doesn't have any money. What's he doing?
He had money, man. He eventually bought everybody drinks. He shows coins, so I guess he gave the queen gave him some per diem.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say he's just been stealing from people left and right. Halbrand. 3 Days in Numenor is a movie about Halbrand pickpocketing people, and then eventually teaming up with an old pickpocket who's washed up. Name, I don't know, whatever Paul Newman's name was in the that movie about pool with Tom Cruise. Anyways, those are a lot of references. I'll move on.
It didn't probably make much sense. I loved it. I do appreciate the guy
Color
that
of Money.
comes over.
The Color of Money was the movie. The Color of Money.
No.
Or The Hustler. The Hustler was the first one. Color of Money was the one with Tom Cruise. Boom, I've got it.
Cocktails? Was it Cocktails?
No, that's when Tom Cruise wants to be the most professional of bartenders. He wants to be a famous bartender after getting out of the military, as one does.
Of course. If you actually look closely in the background, you can see Tom Cruise, shaking up some martinis. I do
Incredible.
appreciate this first guy that kind of comes over and starts harassing Halbrand. He definitely kind of looks like a wannabe, third-rate Julius Caesar. Did you get those vibes?
I did get those vibes. I expected him to get stabbed in the groin by Brutus at any moment, but that did not happen. Instead, he got his face smashed against a wall brutally. This is where you're talking about Halbrand does some quick sleight of hand. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, Halbrand being the peacemaker, he's like, oh, rounds on me. Everyone's getting happy and drunk and, blah, blah, blah. He puts his arm around Julius Caesar, steals his toga token, which is also the blacksmith token. And I thought to myself, I don't think if you show up to the blacksmith's place and you're like, hey, I got a crest, the blacksmith's going to be like, no. You have to earn the crest. You don't just show up with the... I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
He's not going to go to the same blacksmith because he's already played his hand there. He'll go to another blacksmith and say, hey, man, I came from, West Coast Numenor. I'm resettling here with my lady. We need... do some blacksmithing. Here's my coin.
His lady we need. You are much smarter than me, because I would have gone back to the same blacksmith and been like, hey, I got this crest. So, congratulations, Tom. You are a better criminal than I am. And a better detective, as we discovered when we watched the after party. Halbrand, at this point, departs. He goes down an alley. The joyous occasion of them drinking and everything does not last long because he quickly gets followed by a couple of guys in blue togas. We discover that Halbrand's a really good puncher. Punches people well. My wife missed the arm snapping, so I had to rewind it for her. And then she said something to me like, did you rewind that just so I had to watch that? And I giggled because she does not like those kind of things. Julius Caesar gets his face smashed in. That ends Halbrand's time beating up, I think, 5 dudes in an alley because the city guard shows up with those long pokey sticks. In Numenor, they're called Spearinors.
Nailed it. I do appreciate this because this gives us a little bit of the idea that, okay, we haven't seen Halbrand in action yet, and he's clearly a very capable person here. And I think we find out later when Galadriel kind of meets him in the prison that he's like a transformer. There's more than meets the eye.
Maybe a Decepticon.
Exactly.
Transformers, more than meets the eye. Transformers, more than meets the eye of Sauron.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
Then we find ourselves with Galadriel. She's in this sweet scroll library. There's a bunch of maesters with all their cool chains wandering around.
Wrong series.
Oh, what?
I think that's Game of Thrones is the maesters with the chains. But we do get a little bit of backstory with Elrond's brother, which I don't know if I knew he did have a brother, with Elros, who apparently built this place and kept it up and did all the scrolls. Did you know of him? Is he going to be important?
It sounds like he's going to be. I did not know about him. I just knew about the quality of this painting and how
really captured the likeness.
Really captured the likeness. No, I don't know who his brother is, and I don't know how his brother is coming into play. I didn't look him up either, so I have no idea.
Moving on.
Moving on, this is where we have the big reveal of the episode, where she's been hunting down this sigil of Morgoths. And we find out that the sigil, if you turn it sideways, you find out the initials are LT. That's right, Lieutenant LT Smash. That's what we find out.
What did you think of this reveal? Was it cheesy or was it cool? I'm still kind of on the fence. I don't know.
Okay, well, I'll push you off the fence. It was dumb. It was dumb. I was like, wait, it's a map? It's kind of. I don't know. It is what it is. I still like the show. I was not blown away by this, and if they wanted me to be blown away by it, they're gonna have to blow harder because it did not do it for me.
Have to blow harder.
I don't know. We find out she then very quickly is like, oh, because they have a what do you call it? They have help me out, Tom. Where a show dumps a lot of information on you in order to explain it. Yeah, they have a letter of expedition from a prisoner spy or whatever.
Wait. Not expedition. Exposition.
Okay, they have a letter of expedition from a spy prisoner, and we find out that there was a plan that in case Morgoth was defeated, that evil can all move to the Southlands to thrive. And I was like, listen, I don't know Morgoth all that well, but something tells me Morgoth didn't have a contingency plan if things didn't go well. Like, I just don't think evil does that a lot of time because they're probably like, oh, we're going to win at all costs. And when they turn to their second in command and they're like, everyone's ready and we're going to win this battle, the second command's like, oh, yes, sir, we are. Just like what's happening in another part of the world right now. The yes men are all saying yes to the big bad. So
do you think that, I agree with you, I don't think Morgoth is going to have the contingency plan, but do you think Sauron might have had a contingency plan? As like the second in command, he's kind of thinking, listen, if this guy goes down, I need to have a backup. That to me makes more sense.
What would make more sense to me is if Sauron spilled his coffee and it made this weird symbol, and years later, when they're like, oh, this was a map of the Southlands where you wanted us all to gather when Morgoth's defeated, and Sauron was like, yeah, I can see into the future, and then everyone's like, Adar. Like, yeah, I would believe that. I don't know. But maybe that's because all the leaders in my life are like that.
I do like, though, the sequence here. This is, to me, again, another kind of callback to the movies or the Lord of the Rings series with kind of Galadriel finding out about the great evil in this kind of library. We see Gandalf doing the same thing when he kind of learns about the ring and, you know, that it's inscribed and it will light to fire. So I think that's kind of a cool little idea of both of the Gandalf and Galadriel here finding out about great evil from reading text. And being more knowledgeable.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I mean, it just goes to show that if you want to rid the world of email, I'm sorry. Ooh, let me go that. Let me redo that.
You are not cutting that.
It just goes to show that if you want to rid the world of not email, but evil, which those can be equivalent depending on what time of day, you just need to burn all the scrolls and books. Because if there's no books or scrolls, there's no evil, and you'd never know about it. So I think we're all on the same page. Burn the written word. And Tom loves orcs. All right, I never thought I'd hear myself saying this, but thank God we go to the Harfoots. Give me Harfoots. You know, we're at the Harfoot Festival. This is right before their big migration. We get them chanting. They're like, hey, we're going to beat you over the head with this culture where Nori's the only one that wants to go have an adventure. So they're like, our words, our house words are nobody goes off trail and nobody walks alone. Unless you're too slow, then you're going to walk alone and we're going to abandon you. But we'll say your name nicely years later. I don't know.
I felt like I was on mushrooms in this scene when they kind of cut to it.
Oh, yeah,
all these
right.
weird, like, outfits and like these wolf heads or something. I don't know. They're trying to ward off evil spirits or something. It was trippy.
Yes, it was. It was trippy, and you were not on mushrooms. They just made it super great. Nori's dad is still got his bad ankle, which the stranger snapped with a stick. And we find out that migration's going to be a little bit of an issue for them because they've got to pull the old wagon along. Mm-hmm. But as long as they stay in front, they'll be A-okay.
I do want to admit, so in that very pivotal previously on thing at the beginning of the episode, they do a quick cut of him, the stranger, playing with the stick and his leg breaking or his ankle breaking, whatever. So kudos with you. I didn't put that together. The show is clearly telling us again that Gandalf, or not Gandalf, who I think is Gandalf the Stranger, had something to do with his ankle breaking.
I'm just going to let everyone know that Amazon invited Tom to their studios, so when he just called the stranger Gandalf, I think he just violated the NDA that Bezos' ex-wife made him sign.
But 13 internet points for you.
Thank you. I'll use them on a keychain and probably one Jolly Rancher at the Peter Piper Pizza.
Nope, just a Jolly Rancher.
Just a Jolly Rancher. Man, that's a pressure I would never be able to handle in my life, being the kid behind that counter when kids come up with their tickets and they're like, sir, I'd like to get this and this. And you got to be like, listen, kid, I'm sorry, but you're short 3 tickets. And
Capitalism.
The kid's like, but my stepdad only gave me so many tokens. And you're like, sorry, kid. No weird plastic frog that you push down and it leaps for you. Don't choke on that Jolly Rancher. Anyways, that was my childhood. Nori needs the star chart from Sadek stuff, so cut in the Mission Impossible theme song, I believe, at this point, but in Bear McCreary's kind of thing.
I don't know what this book is. Like, it seems just be loaded with prophecy. There's a lot of star charts. We already kind of said that, he saw the picture of a wolf and humans with, elk ears or whatever, or elk horns. So I don't know what this is, but it's seemingly very important. I wonder if we're going to get more of it. But yeah, kind of a classic distraction, calling out different directions from her friend to be able to steal this portion of the map for the stranger.
Yeah, when Nori's under the desk trying to grab it. I don't think of it as a prophecy book. I think what it is a history. And so like when he sees the picture of the wolves and the hunters, like when he's looking at that, I don't think it's a prophecy.
Okay.
What it is like the cycle of, hey, when this happens, it's time for the migration. Like it's that time of year. So that's what I got an understanding. And like the constellations, someone charted the constellations over time. And so that was my thought. We get a Harfoot meeting, a family meeting, as we like to call it in my house, where they all remember the dead, but they don't call them dead. They call them something else, something a little bit gentler. And what we find out here is these guys do not wait for the slow wagon.
Well, their chant is, we wait for you, but it doesn't seem like they do. And it was funny because every time I heard we wait for you, I just couldn't help but think of the greater good. From Hot Fuzz.
The greater good.
Everybody just repeating that constantly.
Yep. It's funny. They read off these names. People are sad. I get the sense that we find out her friend, and I'm blanking on her name, lost like her whole family during the last migration. That actress does a great job. She looks super sad. I feel bad for Blovo. It's like killed by bees, and everyone like chuckles. And he's like, we loved him, but he was a real idiot. And I was like, ooh, that is tough. Shots fired at Blovo in his absence.
Poor guy who was just allergic. He couldn't control that.
Right. He's like, I'm going to get all of you honey. And they're like, yeah, cool. Thanks, Blovo. Dead. Stung 1,000,000 times. Shout out to Blovo. The stranger, while they're having this family meeting, the stranger shows up. He finds the star map. He sets it on fire. Tom, what's this guy's deal? What's this guy's deal? What's happening here?
I'm pretty sure he's like Marshall from the Paw Patrol. He's just a klutz, a bumbling idiot.
I'm sorry. Can you give a different reference point than Paw Patrol?
No.
What? I didn't know that. So one of the Why are you sad? Did one of the Paw Patrol dogs die? Oh, man.
Listen, I have a 3-year-old. These are my references. We talk about Bluey a bunch on this podcast, and yeah, it's the running gag in Paw Patrol that Marshall's kind of the klutz. So I guess he's the klutz. But I mean, I don't know if this stranger's only been a human or in this form for a couple days. He's still learning some stuff. Give him a break.
Okay, so this is a Born Yesterday. This is. Yeah. I'll make a better reference. This is Brendan Fraser in Encino Man. Am I right? Just like. First time in the world, a little bit of Pauly Shore helping him out. Was Pauly Shore in? Never mind, it doesn't matter. Everyone gets mad at Nori.
Well, because he stands up, like the stranger, like he gets all like the blankets and stuff on him, makes him kind of look like a monster. Then he pops his head out, and then his first words are like Nori because he knows her name. And I do like how they kind of cut because instead of the Harfoots trying to grab weapons or trying to like attack, they all just camouflage into the background. So they kind of have their green cloaks and they just kind of hover down. So when he says Nori, everybody kind of slowly pops up. It's
right,
cool.
Right. Like the bushes become Harfoots. Yeah, it's pretty cool. We find out the punishment for bringing the stranger, into the, I guess, family meeting is that you get decaravanned. And I'm pretty sure decaravanned is what happened to Mickey O'Neill in Snatch.
Ooh, yes, the kind of fun.
Yep. Periwinkle Blue. Nori's family is going to have to travel at the back, which, story conflict, the dad needed to be up front because he's got a bum leg. So now something's going to happen. And the stepmom's not real happy with Nori.
Is she a stepmom? Have we established that?
Oh, yeah. Yes, because I don't know if you listened to the dad's long speech to her about how sad he was when his first Harfoot died and how he was so happy when he saw her dancing, and they were trying to tug at your heartstrings, and it worked.
I nailed it.
Nailed it deep in my heartstrings. It was a real punch in the heartstrings. We go from stepmom's not happy, which, I mean, yeah, story of, anyways, to Numenor. We've got a different family meeting. Mm-hmm. We've got Elendil, Isildur, and the sister
Eärien.
That's the one, having a family meeting. And we find out that I guess there's some family not at the family meeting.
Yeah, I didn't know this. They kind of make a quick mention of Isildur's brother, is it Anorian, who's apparently like on the West Coast. Because I don't know, you probably know more about this, but like, is Elendil, they said he's part of noble family. He makes mention of like the former king who still like sides with the elves, is kind of like on the west coast of this island, kind of like banished in his own kingdom. So my assumption is the fact that we know Isildur eventually becomes king is like that like arm of the humans or whatever going to become the new royalty of this island.
I don't know that this stuff is laid out in the books and the lore, so I think they might be making this stuff up for the show, so I don't know. What I do know is that it pretty much like started on the East Coast, and then as it got big, like that West Coast sound came out, and that's when like Snoop Dogg and insert in post
Dr. Dre.
in post another rapper. I'm assuming probably DC Talk was a part of it. Maybe the new kids or old kids of the block of Numenor. They were West Coast. No, Marky Mark's East Coast. So, anyways, you know what I'm saying. Obviously, you know what I'm saying. I'm not rambling. But we then have something about, they want to like focus on the past. The kids do, or at least relive the past. And the dad's like, now you're going to move forward or die. The dad yells at his kids, which happens at every family meeting. This, I cannot say this enough or too loudly. Every family meeting, the dad yells at the kids. That's why kids don't want to go to him. My father doesn't listen to this, so I'm going to get yelled at.
I drive a Dodge Stratus. Remember that Will Ferrell skit?
Oh, yes. I love it. Aranir gets her acceptance letter to college out of nowhere. This turned into like some weird family sitcom out of nowhere. She's like, "Guess what, Dad? This is literally the before they cut to commercial at like a TGIF like I don't know, Family Matters. This is what happens. I got my letter to college." And then I didn't know what was going on. She's joining the guild, the Builders Guild apprenticeship. She got her.
I think they mentioned some of like Isildur's friends mentioned like that she's always with her pen and paper or something like that, or sketchbook or something. So I think she's a designer. Would be my impression.
Sure. There is a moment here where she's like, "Yeah, I reapplied. Isildur to encouraged me to," and the dad's like, my boy Isildur, he's so... and he's gone. And he's gone. Anyways,
he's Isildur Batman.
Yes. No, he didn't throw, like, the smoke down. He just left.
Okay.
You're talking about... Because if you look at the other table, that's Alfred. And he's like, I picture you under the Eiffel Tower, happy with your wife. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
If you look closer, you could actually just see Isildur just ducked under the table.
Going shh to the audience, breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
We cut to jail. Halbrand and Galadriel have a tension-filled talk where she found his sigil in a scroll. I would like to know what the Ask Jeeves of it all. That's like, hey, here's the sigil, go find the scroll. And
it's the Maester, man.
Is that what it is? The Maester's just like, I recognized reading that 80 years ago when I was in my mid-40s.
Yeah, super old guy. What else is he doing? He's in the House of Lore. He's learning lore. It's his job.
He's not watching TV shows, that's for sure. He's reading books, getting smart. Anyways, we find out that the men in the Southlands once gathered under one banner, and Halbrand's of that line, but his ancestors swore the blood oath to Morgoth. Dun, dun, dun.
We get this, like, long speech or line from Galadriel where she's like, ours was no chance meeting, not fate, nor destiny, nor any other words men use to speak of the forces they lack the conviction to name. And I'm like, okay, that sounds cool, but, like, again, kind of a jerk way to say all that. Like, hey, you're dumb, you can't comprehend this. So, I mean, I don't know, harsh but fair.
Wait, what? I don't understand the harsh part. What's harsh?
Like telling men like they don't have the conviction to be able to name, like, because there's forces beyond their understanding, so like they can't even come up with a word for it. It just seemed aggressive to me.
I think what she's saying there, and the way I took it was, like, in this world there is and I'm blanking on his name, but there is a creator. There's a god, and so like I think they're like her thing here is that like men lack the conviction to to think that their fate is not their own, that there's like a path destined for them. I felt like that's what she was saying, not that they were too dumb to know what it was. I don't know. That's how I took it, but I can see where you're coming from. Maybe I'm too dumb to know. Who knows? She's like, "Come with me. We'll redeem both of our bloodlines." This is where I was like pumped. I was like, "Oh yeah, let's do that. I don't care about anyone else. Let's just do that with you two." Go redeem your bloodlines by smoking fools. This is then where we cut to Queen Muriel. She goes to her father. Her father's... Because she's Queen Regent, which means she's queen, but like not kind of officially. She's like a stand-in. And this is the father that is supposed to be friendly with the elves. And
I don't think so, no, right? Because this is the one that like did not go with the elves, kind of a deal. The other one was like banished and kind of on like the West Coast, I think. I don't know. I guess we'll find out more. But they purposely make this ominous by like not showing the king, just showing her perspective and her talking to the king, saying, "Hey, the elf has arrived." Like that was some prophecy.
Okay, so Elendil makes the comment that we still have a king, but he was deposed because he liked elves. And your assumption of that is that she is not related to that king. She is related to
I
Someone
don't know.
else?
Yeah, I don't know if I know. My when she says father and she's the queen regent, my assumption is this is the king, right? Or a king?
Yes.
I don't know. We'll
Or
find. I
was
mean, I don't know if
she-
we need to.
Was she married to the king that was deposed?
Maybe. I don't know. Like to me, this isn't worth even digesting because we're gonna figure this out. Like they're probably gonna touch on it in the next episode. My only reason thinking here is why they didn't show the face is because they've already introduced so many characters. They don't want to throw another character on screen right now.
Right. And then they're going to use the same actor that was the elf watch warden. So that I'm just like, oh, hey, new guy. This guy's nice. We cut here to the Harfoot migration. A lot of sweet camouflage carts. Nora's family struggling. And the stranger's like, hey, I'm taller than all of you by at least 4 feet. Let me pull the cart. Free labor. Huzzah.
Well, free labor. I feel like Nori's helping him out, so it's mutual, but certainly very easy, imagine, for the stranger to just push this cart than it is for all these Harfoots to try to yank it. So it's people helping people.
Yeah, people helping people. Let's pull on this thread, right? The stranger knows these guys are going on this migration, and he knows that he doesn't have leverage on them unless he breaks her dad's foot so that they are forced to go slow and do his bidding. Tom, the stranger planned all of this so that he could get their help. Tell me I'm wrong.
I never thought about that. I like the idea. I don't know if I agree with it, but I like the string that you are pulling on.
Okay, the stranger's bad, breaks people's ankle, is for free and then he's like passively aggressively like, oh, your ankle's broken. I guess I'll help with the wagon. How'd that happen? Friend. Did you trip? Did a stick break near you? We then go from there to Orc Camp. Orc Camp is where my parents sent me every summer in upstate New York for at least 6 weeks, where we were all supposed to lose weight and feel good about ourselves. Until Ben Stiller took over.
I'm feeling skinny, Tony.
Lars. My camp counselor was Lars. He was great. We used to hide candy in the bedposts. Is Keenan in that? Is Keenan?
100% is,
Yeah.
yes.
So is Goldberg. Oh, man. Anyways, back at Orc Camp, Arendelle gets out of his bunk to lead a little bit of rebellion. He does a cool chain fight thing as they're fighting there. They're trying to break their chains so they can escape. They do some orc fighting. They showed this like chain fight jump thing in the previews, but it was pretty cool. I liked it.
Yeah, I like it was kind of silly at first the way they're whipping the chains around, but like the momentum of the chain kind of coming around and then like snapping the orc right in the face, I thought was kind of cool. It's just neat because like you haven't seen it before, to your point, and like that dramatic like running up the taut chain and then just I thought he was gonna like stab some orc in the face, but he just hits the canopies or the umbrellas.
The umbrellas.
And then it kind of puts all the vampire orcs to run away.
Yeah, all the umbrellas pop out. And I just like to say that because of this scene, those of you that go to a gym will probably see someone in a gym flicking those ropes up and down. And it's simply because they watched this episode. They then release a warg, which everyone loves a warg dog.
I think the design of this is kind of cool. It's like crazy rabid and just like the eyes are bulging out of its head. He eventually gets the warg like trapped under the tree, and then I do appreciate the idea here where Arendelle like snaps off a twig as the orcs kind of yank on the chain, so he comes flying back and then uses this part of the tree that he was forced to cut down an orc.
Sure.
I thought that was poetic.
Sure. No, that is good. When he whispered, "Forgive me, tree," earlier and chopped it down, and then later, without asking any forgiveness, he takes part of that tree and murders someone with it. Very good. Our boy, the Watch Warden, gets free, runs up the side, and we'll never know where he goes because he disappears into the land to go bring back an army. And then we fade to black. End of episode.
Not quite. I feel like this is very much a Boromir moment, right? Where our hero kind of seemingly is going to save the day or go and bring an army, but just gets riddled with arrows in slow-mo.
Turns, looks sad, dies. And once again, I was like, oh, that character we just met this episode. Poor guy. Sorry that he died. Didn't even know his name.
Revian.
Arondir gets dragged out, and we get this slow motion walk-in from Adar, and we get a clear picture of who he is. Now, did you recognize this actor from anything else, Tom, when Adar showed up and we could clearly see his face?
He's been typecast because he's just only in fuzzy scenes because that's just where his face looks. So he's always a background actor, but it's good to see him getting some foreground work.
Yeah, you see him a lot in shows where, like, they don't sign the release and they have to blur out the face. That's the same actor that plays this guy.
But yeah, I like this because I like the idea of like teasing Sauron, kind of our new big bad, and not like waiting, I don't know, season 2 or like, the very last episode of this series or this season to kind of then show him. I like the idea that we might see him sooner than later.
Oh, I think we're going to see him soon. I think we're going to see him very soon. I enjoyed this one. I think I enjoyed the back half more. I enjoyed where Galadriel's like, listen, Halbrand, let's go wreck shop. Like, let's do this. I was like, okay, I'm in on that storyline. I like Elendil. I think he's going to play a big part in all of this. And I'm super excited in 9 days that those kids get to go on the trials and become Sea Guardians because that's something people care about and is a thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, I look forward to episode 4. That will put us halfway through the first season. I'm enjoying the journey. Once again, there's some stuff I don't understand. It all looks beautiful. Everyone's acting their heart out, and it looks great. So no complaints here. Tom, tell us what's going to happen over the next 5 episodes. Where are we gonna land? Give me all of your theories, all of your thoughts, or you could simply say I don't know, because that's kind of where I'm at.
I don't know, but I'm with you. I'm having fun with this series. It is tough because I do think pacing is difficult with this many characters because, I mean, there's characters that have gone on other paths. So we saw like the Dwarves, we saw like other stuff that did not even get any screen time in this episode. And I kind of feel like it's tough for a show like this because if you do grasp onto one storyline and you don't get it for another week or 2, it's tough to kind of feel fully invested, especially for a show that's only got 8 episodes, an hour apiece. So I'm still having fun with it. I do understand maybe some of the criticism that's kind of out there about the show being maybe a little bit more challenging to watch. But if you're all in on it and you at least have some appreciation for the lore, I think it's still fun. And I'm hoping they give us little kind of twists and turns as we go throughout the series.
Yep, I agree. All right, well, we have enjoyed talking about it. For those of you that are hanging out with us and listening, we appreciate you. We do want to apologize just for, like, when we're releasing these. We typically release them at the same time, but just the way that 2 were released and then 1 was, the schedule's a little bit off. But we're committed to getting to you at least once a week after the episode drops. So we appreciate you hanging out with us. If you'd like to reach out, and please do, because we enjoy hearing from you as well. I need other people to agree with me that they did not know who those 2 elves were. You can reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. You can hit us up on Twitter. Tom tells me we have an Instagram, but he won't give me any of the details. And because I would use them for evil, I really would. I'm the last person you want to have an Instagram account. But we also wanted to do something that Tom and I talked about, which was obviously we've got a ton of time on our hands because this show only takes an hour and recording only takes, I don't know, how long do these last? 15 minutes of podcasting. So we wanted to talk about, just make a recommendation of some other media that we've tried out or been watching. And so I'll go first, Tom, if that's okay. I wanted to talk about 2 things. One, Tom and I started this podcast because of Ted Lasso. I went back and rewatched the pilot episode of Ted Lasso, and it's just a great show. If you haven't given it a try, if you're joining us and you caught us on like after we did Lasso, go watch Lasso. If you've already watched Lasso, go watch it again. It's such a good show. The upbeat outlook of Lasso, I really enjoyed. So that's something I went and revisited. Tom, do you have something that you're watching outside of this that you would recommend?
Not shows. I will say me and my wife just watched the movie Moonfall over the weekend, which dropped on HBO Max. And it's one of these like disaster porn movies that is just, everything blows up for the sake of blowing up. The storyline is beyond bonkers. It has some big names in it that kind of brought people to the seats. It's written and directed by, I'm not sure if it's directed by, but by the same guy that did like the Independence Day. I think its name is Roland Emmerich, if I have that correct. But just, it was dumb. If you want to turn your brain off for an hour and a half, or actually I think it might be 2 hours, which is too long.
Oof.
But it was a fun time. So give that a go.
Sure. Oh, the last thing I want to recommend for both of us is we have both been watching Welcome to Wrexham, about the soccer club that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney bought. And if you like Lasso, there's a lot of similarities there, just about like what a club means to people. You don't even have to be a soccer fan to enjoy it.
Yeah, a lot of heart.
But yeah, a lot of heart, and it's fun to watch. So those are other things that you can give a go as you're waiting for the next episode of Rings of Power to drop. But we appreciate you hanging out with us. I have been Julian.
And I have been Tom. See you next time, everybody.